June 4, 1942. The Pacific Ocean is a graveyard of burning metal. The United States Navy is on the ropes. Its torpedo bombers have been decimated, and the Imperial Japanese Kido Butai is preparing a final, crushing blow. If the Japanese carriers launch their planes now, the war is effectively over. But 20,000 feet above the waves, one man is staring through his cockpit glass, centered on the red circle of the Japanese flagship. His name is Richard Dick Best. In the next 60 seconds, he will perform a feat of airmanship that seems mathematically impossible. He will strike to different aircraft carriers in a single day of combat. He is about to break the back of the Japanese Empire. But as he pulls his SBD Dauntless out of a screaming, vertical dive, a silent killer is already entering his lungs. This is the story of the pilot who gave his career, his health, and his future to save the world in a single afternoon. Richard Halsey Best was born in New Jersey in March of 1910. He wasn't a daredevil or a hothead. He was a technician. He graduated from the Naval Academy with honors in 1932, a time when the world was still recovering from one war while sleepwalking into another. He spent 2 years serving on the light cruiser USS Richmond, but his heart was in the sky. By 1934, he was transferred to Naval Air Station Pensacola to begin his journey as a naval aviator. Best was a perfectionist. He didn't just want to fly. He wanted to master the most difficult discipline in the Navy, dive bombing, while others saw the dangers of plummeting thousands of feet toward a moving target. Best saw it as a science. On May 31, 1940, he joined Bombing Squadron 6, VB-6, aboard the USS Enterprise. By the time the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, Best was already a seasoned flight officer. He watched from the deck. His squad mates flew into the smoke of the burning harbor. That very evening, he flew the first retaliatory strike for the United States. He spent the early months of 1940 honing his skills in the Marshall Islands, waiting for the one moment where his training would meet destiny. The morning of June 4, 1942, began with a desperate search. The Enterprise launched its air group at 7:06 a.m. But the mission was a mess. The fighters and torpedo bombers became separated in the vast Pacific. Only the dive bombers stayed together, and by 9:55 a.m., they were flying on fumes. Suddenly, the Japanese fleet appeared below. To massive carriers, the Koga and the Akagi were vulnerable. According to US doctrine, Best's squadron was supposed to take the further target, the Akagi, while the lead squadron took the Koga. But in the chaos, the lead commander accidentally led nearly every plane toward the Koga. Seeing the mistake, Best realized that, if he followed them, the Akagi would be left untouched to launch a counterattack. In a split-second decision, he signaled his team to break away. Only 2 other planes saw his signal. It was 3 American SBDs against the flagship of the Imperial Navy Darts at 10:26 a.m. Best pushed into a 70-degree dive. He ignored the black walls of anti-aircraft fire. He held his aim until he was just 1,500 feet above the deck. He released his 1,000-pound bomb, and it was a masterpiece of precision. It pierced the flight deck and exploded in the upper hangar, detonating 18 fueled and armed Japanese bombers. The Akagi was turned into a funeral pyre in seconds. To understand the courage of this moment, you have to understand the physics of the dive. Horizontal bombing was a guessing game, but Dick Best was a surgeon. He kicked his SBD Dauntless into a steep, 80-degree plunge, essentially a controlled fall from 2 miles up. At this angle, gravity isn't just a force, it's a weapon. To keep the plane from tearing itself apart at terminal velocity, Best deployed the perforated dive brakes, slowing the airframe in just enough to steady his aim. As the world screamed past his canopy, the complex math of wind and lead angle vanished. By pointing the nose of his plane directly at the Akagi's red sun, he turned his entire aircraft into the barrel of a gun. The G-forces pressed him into his seat. The centrifugal force threatened to black him out, but he held the line until the massive carrier filled his entire field of vision. It was the only way to guarantee a hit, and it was the most dangerous maneuver in the history of flight. But Best wasn't done. Later that afternoon, he took off again to hunt the Hiryu, the last remaining Japanese carrier. Despite the exhaustion and the mounting danger, Best led another strike. He plummeted through the clouds once more, and though it is debated, his bomb is widely credited as one of the 4 hits that sent the Hiryu to the bottom of the ocean. In one day, one pilot had helped sink 2 of the 4 pillars of the Japanese Navy. When Dick Best landed back on the Enterprise, he should have been a hero for the ages. Instead, he began coughing up blood. During his high-altitude dives, a fault in his plane's oxygen rebreather had caused caustic soda fumes to leak into his mask. The chemicals had scorched his lungs, activating a latent case of tuberculosis. The man who had just saved the Pacific Fleet was immediately bedridden. He was awarded the Navy Cross and the Distinguished Flying Cross for his gallant intrepidity, but his flying days were over. He was medically retired in 1944. He had given his health for his country, and for the next 60 years, he lived with the damage he sustained in those few hours over Midway. Richard Best passed away in 2001, the age of 91. He didn't seek fame, but his legacy is written in the silence of the Pacific. He was the only pilot in history to bomb 2 carriers in one day. He gave up his future in the sky, so that his nation could have a future on the ground.